Hello and welcome to Devil's Advocate. 20 days after the devastating consecutive power grid failures, do we have a clear idea what caused them? And how does the government view the wider power scenario? Those are the two key questions I shall discuss today with the new Power Minister, Veerapa Moily. Dr. Moily, let's start with the two consecutive grid failures at the end of July. Do you have a clear idea what caused them?
Yeah, the 30th and 31st, consequently, these crisis grid failure took place. In fact, this is, I must tell you, you can't attribute the responsibility or reason to one factor. There are a number of contributing factors for this. This can happen once in a time. 2001 it did happen, and of course it repeated now.
Let me put it like this. Newspaper reports, and in particular the Hindu, have made it crystal clear that overdrawing by states was neither the only nor the partial cause of what happened. Firstly, preventive mechanisms like under-frequency relays, which could have prevented the collapse, either had not been installed or worse, they had been tampered with. Can you confirm those newspaper reports?
No, I can't confirm, because now that report of the expert committee from outsiders particularly is available now. None of these reasons have been cited.
So the expert committee report does not mention that the absence of under-frequency relays meant that you did not have preventive mechanisms that could have prevented a collapse? It doesn't mention that at all?
No, because that is not the reason, I must tell you. There are various reasons, like it is not only the overdrawal from some of the states in the northern grid, but it is also overloading from the western grid. One side, the overloading from the western grid, second, the overdrawal here, and that's how, the things have slipped.
So you're saying the two critical causes were overloading by the western grid and overdrawing by the northern grid. The combination meant that there was a grid collapse on 2 consecutive days.
Yeah, very much so.
But then this leads to a second explanation, which once again has been in the papers, that you have critical management failure. The newspapers have said that the NRLDC and state load dispatch centers were well aware of rampant and persistent overdrawing by certain states. But they did nothing beyond filing petitions with the Central Electricity Regulatory Commission. More effective steps to stop overdrawing were not taken, and as a result, overdrawing continued till you reached a crisis.
The difficulty is, distribution system is with the state governments, with their state regulatory authorities. And you suppose you are in a position to, there is a overdrawal, and we cannot switch off. We do not know, there may be some very crucial matter, there may be a riot, there may be something else. Suppose they blackout a state or a blackout a part of the grid, it may result in disaster, which you cannot do it. But the question is, discipline has to be maintained, and adherence to the power grid rules will have to be done. It is all prescribed by law, but unfortunately, the central grid, national grid, has no control over them with regard to the distribution system.
I'll come to the need for discipline in a moment's time. I want very much to discuss that with you, but let me first quote to you what a member of your own ministry, the Power Ministry, said to the Hindu on the 2nd of August. The control rooms of these load dispatch centers were fully aware of what was going on and which states were posing a danger to the grid, but they failed to isolate these states from the grid, and therefore they failed to prevent a grid collapse. That is clearly proof of management failure.
I spent 4 hours in the National Dispatch Center at Delhi. I went into every detail of it. Apart from that...
And you're saying to me that there was therefore no management failure?
No. The question is, it is not a management failure, but the question is that, the dispatches were sent to each of the state. It's a overdrawal, and the northern grid states have been, after states, they issued the notices. Some of they have also filed the cases.
That's what I'm saying. All they did was to file petitions with the Central Electricity Regulatory Commission, and once those petitions were filed, the dispatch centers didn't do anything more. I'm saying to you that effective steps to stop overdrawing weren't taken.
Unfortunately, what happens, the disaster which may cause, by stopping. We have only one alternative to stop the dispatch and, stop the grid from operating. If you do that, that can be a bigger repercussion.
Minister, that's the point I'm making. If some states are persistently and rampantly overdrawing and they are not listening to advice, they are not responding to petitions, then clearly, for the good of the majority of the country, you must stop supply to those faulty states. They are defaulters, they are endangering the country. That is a step that management didn't take.
This is a question of, we'll have to treat this as a national security matter. What happens in any one state, because we have no control over.
So you're saying you need a change in mindset.
And there should be independent regulatory authorities to control this at the state level. Which is the state, I think we may have to bring we may have to bring some legislation and amendment to the 2003 Electricity Act to ensure that the enforcement powers are really strengthened.
Before we come to the steps you need to take to ensure this doesn't happen again, I want to point out one more area of what once again sadly looks like management failure. It's reported that 24 hours before the first grid collapse on the 30th of July, the authorities had a clear warning of impending disaster because there was a near-miss situation on the 29th of July. But not only was that warning not heeded, but no steps were taken to prevent it happening.
Again, I went into that. I referred to the committee also to go into that. But 29th warning, I also thought initially that that was a warning. But to be very frank with you, that is totally an isolated incident. It has nothing to do with what has happened on 30th and 31st.
So let me just, for the sake of the audience, ask you once again. You are saying to me that there is no indication here of management failure?
Yeah, no indication.
Absolutely
and
none.
The report doesn't show that. Of course, they have suggested number of measures, corrective actions.
Minister, stop. I'll come to the corrective measures in a moment's time. Before I come to the corrective measures, let's talk about the 5 states that are alleged to be responsible for overdrawing. Some of them, like Punjab, vehemently deny it. Punjab has gone on record to say the charges of overdrawing are absurd, factually baseless, grossly misleading. So your 5 defaulting states are actually not accepting responsibility.
For your kind information, immediately I called for the Chief Minister's conference here on 6th. And we assessed everything. And then ultimately, overdrawal itself is not the reason. There may be overdrawal.
But does Punjab...
But again, overloading is also a problem.
But does Punjab accept it was overdrawing? Does UP accept it was overdrawing? Does Haryana accept it was overdrawing? Those are the 3 critical states.
No, the question is that, whether they agree or not, it is on record. And ultimately, the warnings are also on record.
So in other words, this denial by Punjab amounts to nothing. The records show overdrawing by Punjab.
We don't want to put any blame game on anybody. That's why
I'm not asking
that is why we took all the chief ministers put together. We took resolutions so that the grid discipline is maintained at any cost.
Okay.
And all of them agreed to do that.
Let's now come to how we maintain grid discipline, because in the case of overdrawing and in the case of preventing grid collapse as a result, the maintenance and enforcement of grid discipline is essential. What are the measures you propose to enforce grid discipline?
You will have to, first time, of course, 2010, they have taken a decision for particularly, for the auditing of the grid system. And it was not implemented because the states were expected to audit it. But they said, we have no money now. Now today, we have decided that, even that costing will be done by the center.
Okay, so auditing and the cost of auditing will be done by the center.
Yeah.
What's the second step for grid discipline to be maintained?
Then the National Grid Load Dispatch Center and the Regional Load Dispatch Center, in consultation with Central Electricity Authority and the Central Transmission Unit, review the transfer capability of inter-regional and any other critical links, keeping in view the factors leading to the grid disturbances. So that means to say, there should be appropriate matching and harmonious matching with regard to the distribution system, which is purely on the domain of the state government, and also with the transfer. We maintain the trunk lines. You remember, when we maintain the trunk line, and there should be a matching distribution system to take on the load.
So in
if
other
they
words,
don't do it, there can be disturbance,
so
there could be tripping, and there can be a lot of disturbance.
I'm putting it in layman's language because layman may not follow the technical words you're using. You're saying there mismatches between the trunk line and the distribution system must be removed. There must be matching systems. There should be no anomalies. Is that right?
Right.
Now, what about giving load dispatch centers the power to cut off states that are persistently overdrawing and will not listen to warnings? Are you prepared to give them that power?
We need not give a power, we can definitely cut off. There is no problem at all.
You're prepared to do that?
Under law, we are perfectly in a position to do it. But the question is, can I black out the entire state?
Well,
that's a real crucial question.
Minister, if the choice is between blacking out one state and blacking out the whole of northern India or the whole of eastern India, you don't have much choice.
No, this is a matter, which the states should understand. That's why I immediately called the meeting. I don't think, this can be repetitive action. This one time it must have, twice it must have happened. But, now I can definitely tell you, with the kind of system we have now adopting, and, and we started adopting.
I'm interrupting you. Yes. I'm interrupting you. If you do not enforce the power to cut out a state which is deliberately overdrawing, this will happen again and again. So I repeat my question. Will you be prepared to take that drastic step of cutting out states, blacking out states that persistently overdraw?
Ultimately, the kind of short-term and the long-term measures which we are now going to put in place, and also, the financing the state distribution system, and we are supporting them by giving a debt restructuring
Minister, you're not answering my question. My question is a critical question. I'm going to repeat it because I think it's important.
No, I understood.
So will you be prepared to cut out states that persistently overdraw?
I'm telling you that occasion will not come because I am going to put in systems. I'm going to support the state dispatch system and also the state grid system to ensure that they will put in system and also make an appropriate match.
If you do not give load dispatch centers the power to cut out states that are persistently overdrawing, no one will believe you this won't happen again. The reason it happens, you yourself have said, is overdrawing.
I'm telling you, I'm already repeating again that overdrawable itself is not contributing to that reason. That's why there may be sometime overdrawal, underdrawal by various things.
What about
that alone is not. But at the same time, injection, that means the overloading of the system by western grid or the eastern grid, that can also contribute to that. Is why let us not put the blame on one state or another state.
If you are not prepared to cut off states that persistently overdraw, will you take a second measure which may be easier, not so radical, that you will impose heavy fines on states that are overdrawing?
That is true. That is what I am contemplating now.
Heavy fines?
Heavy fine. And to be very frank with you, there is also a provision to imprison the authorities or the state chief secretary for disobeying it. Perhaps we need to enforce that.
So heavy fines as well as the
imprisonment.
All the way to the state chief secretary.
Yeah, definitely. He is the person responsible. He has to control and regulate.
So you are prepared to exercise the whip if need be, but you are not going to cut out states and black them out.
Yeah, correct. Well, let us punish the persons who are responsible, not making the innocent citizen of that particular state to suffer, or innocent farmers to suffer.
One other quick question. Are you also prepared to consider islanding critical cities like the capital Delhi, or islanding critical facilities like airports, hospitals, the metro, the railways?
Yeah, this is an important measure. You are right. That's why in all essential services, we should have the process of islanding. And I must tell you that even in the other 30th and 31st, what has happened, the critical and essential services have been restored within 2 hours.
Yes, but in future, you will island critical services.
Yeah, correct. That is what we are going to do.
Will you also island the capital?
No. Islanding the entire capital may not be possible. You can't do that.
But
the question is that wherever there are critical essential services like metro rail, the airport, or the water supplies, or the electric supply, and many of these things are concerned, we will ensure that the islanding is done. And we would like to do it, take it up as a big program, in a mission mode program, on a wartime basis.
Let's take a break at that point. When I come back, I want to talk to you about the wider power scenario. Yeah. How does the government respond to a situation that most economists think is almost a crisis? That's in a moment's time. See you after the break. Welcome back to Devil's Advocate and an interview with the new Power Minister, Veerapa Moily. Dr. Moily, let's come to the wider power scenario in India. You're set to have a peak time shortfall between 10 and 12%. Secondly, it's reported that targets that you had set to build additional capacity were not met in the 8th plan, the 9th plan or the 10th plan. They haven't even been met in the 11th plan. In fact, they've been missed sometimes by sizable margins. How do you explain this poor planning performance?
You are referring to the distribution system and dispatch system?
And I'm also referring to increased generation. Targets to increase generation have been
But I
missed.
must tell you that, the target which is achieved in the 11th five-year plan, even though there is a shortfall of about 10,000 megawatt of power, but I must tell you that all plans put together, targets which we achieved in the 11th plan is tremendous.
Forgive me.
Now,
forgive
with
me.
that confidence,
Can I quote to you Bloomberg, one of the most reputed financial agencies?
Yeah.
India has missed every capacity addition target since 1951. Every target. So you set targets and the government fails to achieve. Not just you, all governments. Don't read that, Minister. Answer me.
Yeah.
Why is it that we cannot meet targets to increase capacity when there's already a shortfall of 10 or 12%?
I can speak about the 11th five-year plan. And the 11th five-year plan achievement is 2.5 times of the achievement in any five-year plan. This is on record. I'm just telling you, this is the truth. In the first year of the 12th plan itself, we added 6,216
newspaper?
megawatt.
Just a moment. The Hindu newspaper, just about half of the planned capacity additions, just about half, were achieved in the 8th, 9th and 10th plans. The story of underperformance continued in the 11th plan. So in no plan have you achieved your target to add capacity to the extent you thought you could succeed. You failed in your own terms every time.
I think, this is only exaggeration. When I can speak about the 11th five-year performance, it is 2.5 times of the achievement all the five-year plans put together.
Absolutely.
And
Minister, you may have achieved more than earlier plans, but you still haven't achieved the target of the 11th plan. That's the point.
11th plan. This is what. Then this 12th plan is concerned, we are going to achieve 80,000 megawatt of
The 12th plan is still for the future. Let's not go to that. Let me bring up a second problem. 27% of all the power you generate is lost either by theft or by dissipation through the wires. It's 5 times the figure for China. As a result, and because of other reasons as well, the cumulative losses of your utilities is almost 1.8 lakh crore, which is almost 3% of GDP. So not only do you have poor planning, you have appalling management.
I must tell you that, all these laws, AT&T losses we call it, to be very frank with you, it ranges, national average is 27%.
That's right, it's appalling.
I'm telling
5 times China.
Yes, 27%. The question is, each of the state distribution system is in a bad shape, and many of them are practically, financially not viable. And that's why, now the government of India, we are working on a debt restructuring plan and a measure, to ensure that, all the state SEBs distribution system is revamped, and, which will be done, with the certain very stringent conditions. They will have to perform for few things about the tariff. They will have to do a few things on the question of, the distribution system. And that's why, we are going to do that,
Can I put a simple question,
This is before the parliament.
Can I put a simple question? There are less than 2 years to go for this government. The task you face is Herculean. In fact, some would say it's almost impossible to achieve. How much do you think you can achieve between now and May 2014? Give me a quick answer.
Yeah, I can very quickly I am now giving year-to-year target. And I must tell you, progress is very good. And I can definitely tell you, if not,
Minister, you can't claim progress is good. You've only been minister for 18 days.
I'm just telling you, I can tell you on the basis of the evidence available and the projection we have, from 27%, we will definitely achieve less than 15.5%.
All right.
Not less than 15.5%.
And what about, very quickly, the cumulative losses of the utilities? 1.8 lakh crore. What will you reduce it to?
No, that we can, when I am going to receive, particularly the distribution system, the AT&T losses from 27% to 15.5%. To that extent, more than 75% of this loss will be covered.
All right, those are two promises you made. The country will hold you
I am very
to
conscious of that.
it. A pleasure talking to you.
Thank you. Thank you.